Welcome to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. There's no need to adjust your television sets because you have entered a new dimension, a dimension in which I today will be interviewing the new President of the United States, President Marshall. Here we go. That's right. We're here with United Opposition with Scott and President Marshall. This is a new dimension that we've entered into here, based on the a Facebook post that I saw where Marshall was commenting about what the president should and shouldn't do, and somebody said, "Well, what would you do as president?" I said, "That sounds like a interesting dimension that I'd like to find out." I got a lot of things buzzing around in my ear right now, David. I don't know if there's anything that's on. I'm getting like interference and crackling and stuff like that. And okay, so Marshall, we have your mic okay? Whoa, yeah, you got something going on your side, Mr. President. You need to have your whoever it is on your cabinet kind of come in and work on your microphone. And yeah, Mr. President, we're not off to a good start so far. Yeah, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Let's try that again. Mr. President, how are you doing today? We're having some major trouble with your microphone. Are we sure it's not on our end? It's coming through very digital, very over, like peaking and over. It's hard to understand. If you guys hear that, or if it's just in my ears. It's my headset here. All right, so we're going to give Mr. President a chance to reset his headset and see if that works out a little bit better. Testing. It's still a little bit overdriving. We're getting a lot of distortion. So I'm going to pull up this here. That way I can see if there's any comments going on or anything like that. And now you're gone. I don't hear you at all. I'm going to see how you're coming through live out there. There you are. I'm hearing you now.
All right. Are we good?
Yes, you are good.
All right. Well, sorry about that.
Not sure what happened, Mr. President, but whoever you have in charge of your technology department on your cabinet, you should probably fire them.
Yes. I think you should drop the nuke.
Yeah. Is that going to be your answer for everything? Just drop a nuke?
Yep, drop a nuke.
Okay, so tell me, what is the priority under your, as president? What do you feel is your priority as president? What's your priority?
I think as president, the priority ought to be to make sure that we establish a floor underneath all American citizens, below which we do not let people fall. That means establishing a right to basic goods and services, housing, food, shelter, water, clothing, the basics, as well as a right to work. I think there should be a public works program, and anybody who wants a job should be able to just go get a job, even if they're being employed by the government.
Why would they go get a job if you're going to provide all their basic needs? Why would
Well, first of all, providing the basic needs doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be in a state of comfort. It's just the raw basics to keep people sheltered and off the streets. And the second thing is, I think healthy people want to work. Healthy people want to contribute and be part of something. It's the people who are chronically unemployed or homeless generally have either a substance abuse problem or a mental health problem or a combination thereof.
Mhm.
And there's probably a small number of those people who have just fallen on bad luck and bad times, but generally they manage to get their way out of it if the resources are available. Most people rely on family and friends to
Mhm.
keep them out of that situation or to lift them out of that situation if they get into it. There's very few people who get into that situation and can't get out if they have the opportunity. Most people who want out will get out. You know,
But
there are
we're
some
seeing
people
that
who
most
get
people
locked
don't
into it
want to
though
get out.
because what's that?
What we're seeing is that there's a lot of people who don't want to get out.
That's right. They don't want to get out because they
You
don't want to.
So when you start providing the basic needs, you're thinking that that's going to raise people up, but the reality is people will be happy. They'll be, I wouldn't say happy, but they'll be satisfied to live at that level if they don't have to put out any work.
Right. So what that means for all of us is it means an incredible savings. First of all, it means you don't have homeless people running the streets all over, doing crimes, breaking in, stealing things.
Where
Second of all,
where are they
gives
living?
people what's that?
Where are they living?
They're going to live in shelter. We're going to provide them with shelter, no strings
There
attached.
there are empty shelters right now.
No, no, no. The shelters are not necessarily empty. And the other problem with the shelters is the reason why any shelter is ever empty is often because they have a lot of rules. And these people don't want to follow rules.
Right.
So at least,
You're going to provide place for people who don't want to follow rules.
yes,
What is going to happen in those communities?
well, because would you rather have them under a roof in a place where you know they are at night, or would you rather have them out somewhere on the street in your neighborhood? You know, That's the
Neither would be nice, but in the end, when you're going to have more of them crammed into one place, if you are providing that, you're gonna you're gonna create the pandemic of homelessness. You're literally providing a place. You're getting all. If we're gonna equate it to having an infection or having a breakout, you're gonna get all the infected people and put them all in one place. And you think that that's going to cause the illness to go away, or is that going to amplify it?
Well, where would you rather live? Would you rather live there or where you live now?
I'll live where I live now because I'm going to work.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what most healthy people are going to do and say. And we have you create a government works project so that anybody who wants a job does not have to be unemployed. They can go and actually have a job, probably doing something for which they are skilled. And you put everybody to work, and so that the only people are the ones who literally do not want to work. And the thing is you don't want to work with those people. I would rather they sit in a government provided shelter on a government provided couch watching government provided television and
That is
stay
all
there
to the ground. None of them are following any rules.
that then enter into the prison system or do a crime or break the law or do any of these other things that create all of these expenses for us as a society. When
You,
we have seen cities that provide no strings attached housing
no
for
strings
homeless
attached.
people,
You
we've
provide
seen
no
that their
strings
costs
attached
and their
housing.
crime rates decline.
You think if you provide no strings attached housing and bundle all of these people together, that they're not going to cause problems.
I didn't say that they were going to be bundled together. That's something you said.
No, you said you were putting them all together in shelters without restrictions. You were bundling them all
Right,
together.
right. Well, how the plan is actually implemented on the ground should be done consistently with best case practices as demonstrated in other places where this has actually been done and worked.
We're at.
I think New Orleans in particular, I think was one place. So you're putting me on the spot to name a location though, and I'm not sure of where, but I do know these.
You were the one who
have-
you were the one who mentioned
Right.
that it happens in other places. I didn't put you on the
Yeah.
spot. You put yourself on the spot.
Okay, well, I guess you can fact check me.
Making it my job.
Yeah,
Being-
you're the interviewer, you're the media, so you
Right.
fact check me.
Well, so I'll tell you what, then we will say that those places don't exist because it's
Yeah,
you have the
well-
burden of proof. You have the burden of proof and you have not provided the proof. So those places.
Okay, MSNBC. Next question.
What do you mean? You're expecting me to provide the proof for your argument. Are you going to look it up right now? There you
Yeah,
go.
we go.
Got to do. That's how we want to use our time on this interview is you not being prepared and having to, you making a claim and then not having the information to back it up.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you.
So what's your priority as far as like where should America stand to the rest of the world? What I'm coming at is when I asked the priority question, I wasn't necessarily asking about policy. I asked what your priority was, and you went straight to policy. I'm trying to find out what is
Well, as a president, your focus should be on the people.
which people?
You know, your people, the people who you were elected to represent, which is all of the American people.
The American people.
Right.
Good. Okay. That's what I want to make sure. So
Yeah.
how do you define that? You find that as providing for them, or you find that you seem to be saying that
Right.
that
Well, governments provide services. That's why they exist.
governments protect rights. That's why they should exist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, governments also protect rights by providing services. For example, governments provide postal service. They provide national defense. They provide infrastructure projects, things that individual private corporations cannot successfully do because we're too big. We have too many interconnections. That's why the Interstate Commerce Clause exists, which is constitutional, and it gives the government the right and the authority to.
So how exactly does that work when the government just hires regular companies to do it?
Well, they put out bids. They get contractors. Yeah, it's just
the actual ones building it. So the private companies are actually the ones building the roads, not the government.
Most of the time, but you also have state programs. So you have like Caltrans,
which are paying private corporations.
Sometimes it depends. It depends on the nature of the work. So
private corporations can do it.
They can, but again, you have to coordinate and manage all of it, and that's going. If you can't have like we had up to the American Civil War, where you have narrow gauge and wide gauge railroad tracks between the different states, because that created all kinds of problems.
All you need is all that means is regulation. Doesn't mean that the government builds it. The government didn't build those train tracks.
Correct, although the government subsidized it, and we wouldn't have had all of that without the government subsidization, for better or for worse. But
very similar.
You have to
to the California high-speed rail.
What about it? That's a state program, not federal.
Right, but I'm saying all the money that it was controlled by the federal. They had people, and we've lost billions of dollars into private hands from the government because government officials were funneling it off and choosing which people. The government is not.
That's a state concern. As president, my concern's the nation.
Oh, so that doesn't happen with the federal funds.
Well, where it does, you root it out and you solve for it, don't you?
Well, I mean, how long is it going to take you to root it out? Right now, in another dimension, there's a president who's rooting that out very, very quickly. Would you do it as quickly?
No, I would do it. I would do it.
We're doing the same.
I would do it correctly. I would do it correctly.
The same way that.
And I wouldn't just do a witch hunt.
The same way it's always been done.
Yeah. In your dimension,
doesn't get done.
Right. In your dimension, it's just a witch hunt. And it's just tearing things up and creating all kinds of issues.
So tell me
more trouble than it's worth.
Tell me your timeline for cleaning up all of that corruption. What's your timeline? How does that work out?
Well, we have normal means, right? If there's corruption, it should be presented, and then you pursue legal remedies for that.
Who presents it? Who searches for it?
Anybody can report corruption. There's whistleblower, tip lines and other things. We have district attorneys. We have federal attorneys. We have all of these people. We have an entire apparatus in place.
You're saying the apparatus is already in place and it hasn't worked. If you're saying
corruption is a constant ongoing thing. Because we're humans and there's temptation.
Right.
And people
how are you going to?
And if you think this current,
it's not obviously you, like you just said, that we have problems within the government system. And I asked you how you were going to fix it because I see another dimension where somebody's fixing it really fast. And you said, no, that's too fast. That's not the way. I have a better way. And I asked you how you
they haven't fixed anything.
And
you want to see corruption.
I asked you how you're going to fix it. And you explained to me you're going to fix it using the same system that is currently in place that hasn't fixed it. What kind of answer is that?
Well, first of all,
How are you going to
proved-
get it
you
done?
have not proved you have not proved that any corruption exists at all in the system. You're
Oh,
just
so you're,
operating off an
I'm
assumption.
sorry, so you're telling me that there is no corruption.
If there is
Are you
corruption, it's
telling me there is
certainly
no
not.
corruption?
No, there's not. You have to.
And you and I are in agreement. So how are you going to fix the corruption?
Okay, then you have to prove it. You have to
No,
prove it.
you already agreed that there is corruption. You and I are in
No,
agreement. How are you going to
I
fix it?
I don't.
I have to ask you, are you saying there is no corruption?
No,
Are you saying there is no corruption?
no,
Okay, so you're agreeing with me that there is corruption.
no. I'm saying there's not. You haven't proved that it exists. Where it exists, there are normal means.
You
to
can't
deal
have
with
it both ways. You cannot.
Just because some. Yes, I am. I'm a politician and a
No,
president.
and I'm holding you
Do you
accountable.
want? Do you want me to tweet? Because I will tweet about this.
Who
I will
cares?
tweet about you.
Nobody cares about tweets.
Yeah, well,
Who
you
has no
should.
power?
You
No,
should
who has no
because
power?
I hear in the other dimension, when someone tweets, holy crap.
Yeah, there's tweets
Anyway,
have no power.
anyway, next question.
No. I want you to answer how you're going to fix corruption. You mentioned.
What do you want me to do? Create a Gestapo and go out and round people up because they work for the government?
What are you going to do to?
That's what we're getting now.
You brought us down this path. You brought us down this path when I said with state, and you said no, but that's not federal. I said so. There's no federal corruption. Yes, there is. I said then how are you going to fix it? Because we can fix it really fast or not.
Right.
No,
So the
that's wrong.
the answer is normal means. That's the answer.
Which isn't working. You agree?
What do you want
How are
me
you
to
going
do?
to change that? I want your plan. How are you? What is a better way of rooting out corruption in government? What is a better way?
Okay.
The
So
current system is not working. You agree with that. So what's going to be your plan, or are you just going to ignore corruption?
no, I think what you do is you take again, aside from normal means, if I were to improve the integrity of our elected officials, but again, this is not something that the president would do. See, I'm president, so you're asking for things at the congressional and judicial level, which that's not my job.
Right, but you can.
If I were to propose something, I would propose term limits for Congress and the Senate.
Okay, good. We're getting answers. Good.
Okay. All right. And of course, I would strengthen any kind of ethical guidelines. I would eliminate perks and privileges for members of Congress and the Senate. If the American people don't get it, neither should they.
All right. These are solutions. Thank you.
Yeah. So
that's all I was asking for.
Okay. Well, there you got it.
Right. So do you think that'll help? How fast will that take place? Do you think that can get done? Because you're saying you can't do it. You can suggest it. So
it's something that the people have to compel Congress to do.
Okay. So how are you going to help promote that?
Well, the only thing you can do is appeal to the people to force that.
So why is
you have to do it at the ballot box? Because you can't.
Why won't you do something that you do have the power to do? Why won't you take those steps? If there's areas that you as a president have the power to do that, why won't you take those steps?
So my authority would be to dismiss people from their post, but they would have to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
There could be some sort of streamlining that could happen or technology that could be implemented, but that's going to be on a case-by-case basis. But of course, you do those things if it's reasonable to do so. The real power that you would have would be to empower federal prosecutors or encourage federal prosecutors, through your attorney general, to root out and deal with these cases, to prioritize these cases. Otherwise, it's really mostly a judicial branch issue. So, all I can do is direct the investigation of these things and encourage prosecution of them, but I'm not the decider. And you don't throw out a baby with the bathwater. If you find a corrupt official or a program that's inefficient, you deal with that individual official or program. You don't pull the plug on the entire agency if the agency is doing good. And especially if Congress has empowered the agency, because that's not really something a president has the right to do. It's up to Congress to pull the plug and to manage the purse strings, not the president.
Cool. How about when it comes to foreign policy? How tied to other countries are you wanting the United States to be? If one country goes to war, do you want us to support them or not?
Right. So we're going to have certain strategic alliances such as NATO, right? And there's Article 5 of NATO. And our commitment to Article 5 of the NATO treaty has to be ironclad and unquestionable.
Which one? And
The,
define Article 5.
well, Article 5 says that an attack on any one NATO country is essentially an attack on the entire alliance, and the entire alliance is obligated to assist that country should they call for assistance. So if they call
Alright.
for help. So
So
if Russia invades Poland, for example, we have an obligation to respond and militarily. And
So
yeah,
tell me, in this day and age, with where we are now, because NATO goes back 50, 60 years, where we are right now, tell me, why does the United States need NATO? As president of the United States, why does the United States need NATO?
right, because it's a defensive block. So it's one of the things that I think has kept the peace for 60 years. And while the Cold War is ended and the Soviet Union is gone, it
Mhm.
is not the end of Cold Warfare. Cold Warfare continues in the form of Russia and China in particular. And we need a bulwark against that. And one of those bulwarks is our commitment to common defense with all of our allies. So
But why? What could they do to us?
because well, if we don't have the defensive alliance, then we see what happened to Ukraine. We see the moves,
How does
for
that
example,
affect?
that China is making towards Taiwan, the belligerence towards Taiwan.
Mhm.
And these are our strategic partners. And we have trade agreements, we have raw material agreements with these nations and others. And so, yeah, economic agreements. And if we don't, again, support them, we encourage people to do what Adolf Hitler did in World War II, which is, hey, I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and I'm going to grab that, and what are you going to do about it?
But
So
why do we need a group of NATO, and why not have just individual treaties with these places? Hey, you know what? We have an individual,
right, right,
treaty with you. If somebody, because of these resources, we're doing, if anybody comes and uh,
mhm,
puts an attack or puts a threat against the resources we need, we will come in there and defend those resources. Why do we need a whole group called NATO? Why does it?
right.
Why, who?
That's the
Look, it's
that's
not
the
even NATO. Everybody in NATO needs the United States. The United States doesn't need anybody in NATO. It seems like
right,
it's very backward. It seems like it's very that America puts out a lot for NATO and doesn't get anything back. Why would
right.
you stay in NATO and keep doing that? What do we get back from NATO?
Okay, so we learned this lesson from the First World War. The reason why the First World War exploded and became a world war is precisely because we had these types of agreements you described. We had individual treaties between different nations that were not necessarily linked to each other. Specifically, for example, uh, you know, uh, I want to say Serbia and Russia had a treaty
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't involve Britain or France.
Mm-hmm.
But because Austria-Hungarian Empire invaded Serbia
Mm-hmm.
and Germany was allied with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it forced Russia to declare war on both of those countries. But then Russia had a treaty with France. So then France has to go to war with Germany and Austria-Hungary to
Mm-hmm.
honor their alliance. Well, then there's an alliance with England. So then England comes in. And then Italy switches sides because where they're like, well, our treaty was only a defensive treaty and so on. So we have this situation where you get this cascade effect that it leads to a world war. A regional conflict ends up causing a world war.
Right.
Whereas if you have a big alliance, a block of nations who, if you touch that little guy, all of us are going to come and defend him. That is a real deterrent. And again, it has kept the peace for almost 80 years.
Right, but the part that you're missing is that NATO has not kept the peace. The United States in NATO has kept the peace. The part that you're missing in
No,
World
I
War I,
disagree.
no,
I
the
disagree.
part that you're missing
Yeah,
in World,
I entirely disagree. You're wrong.
the part that you're
You're
missing
factually incorrect.
but the part that you're missing from World War I was that you did not have the United States as a superpower in World War I. You did not have the United States with what it is right now. You did not have the United States the size that it is, with the military that it is, with the outreach that it had in all of those same countries. And you didn't have the United States with treaties with those countries for the minerals or resources, whatever it is, the United States that we're talking about right now. You didn't have that in existence. And
Right.
now the
Do
United
you
States,
know
those
what it
individuals.
takes to supply an army across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean? Do you know how hard it is
Oh,
to do that?
yeah.
Yeah. Do you know how long it took us to gear up to do that in World War II?
Right. But right now
It took us
we can have
two
a
and a half years
we can have a
to do that.
carrier group anywhere in the world in 24 hours.
Well, no, we can't have it
Yeah.
in 4 hours. No, 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 no. They're not that fast.
No, but they are stationed. They're stationed in so many places
There you go.
yeah, they're stationed in
And
so many.
that's why we have those alliances, because we're able
Right.
to forward
But
deploy American forces
we can make
and
these
resources.
alliances
Because
individually.
if we did not have those bases around the world and those forward deployed materials, we would end up in a situation where, just like 1914 to 1916 or 1939 to 1942, we have to build up. And then 1942 to 44, we also have to build up in Europe before we can actually take decisive action.
But
So
even in those
other
situations,
countries would
why
take advantage of that.
right, but we don't need NATO for that. The United States is so big
Yes,
now that the
yes,
United
we
States
do.
can make its own treaties
No,
and make its own alliances and make it
no, it doesn't work that way. No, you need to make a friend. We can't just walk into a country without
no,
permission.
but I didn't say that. I said you make agreements with the nations individually, not through NATO.
Well, that's what
You
NATO
can
allows
never
us
do
to
it.
do. And then not only that, NATO gets us something in return, which is all the other countries are in there with us, and they train with us, and they drill with us. You know, we practice and rehearse and so
They
on. We
suck
learn
off
the
us.
terrain, we
What
learn the
do we
environment, we learn
learn
the
from them?
languages. What's that?
What do our militaries learn from other militaries? They suck information from the United States. Let's be real.
Okay, so when a Swedish submarine in a drill sank an American aircraft carrier 10 years ago during a drill,
Hmm.
um, you think that those other nations are toothless, that they couldn't, do the things they've obviously demonstrated that they can do?
Yeah,
You
one
know,
submarine,
these. Oh,
one
no,
carrier of what is it, 14?
would you like to go to war with Switzerland? You should see how Switzerland defends itself
We
against
don't need
Sweden and
to.
other countries. Here's the
That's
thing:
what I'm saying. We
you're
don't need.
acting like you're acting like we can go into a bar and beat everybody in the bar fight. No big deal, no matter how big and bad they are. And one on one, maybe that's true. But what if they have an alliance, or what if we're not lucky? Having friends in the fight is way more helpful than to have to go it
I'm not
alone
saying
all
not
the
having friends in the fight. I'm saying making our own friends and not coming in with
Well, we have, yeah, it's called NATO.
we're,
That's our gang, okay?
we don't
created
have
a
to
gang
be a
called
gang.
NATO.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have to be a gang. We can be friends.
Yeah, it
We
doesn't
don't,
work that way
we don't
because
have to be a
history.
gang.
Okay,
We don't have to be dragged in by somebody else's and supply somebody else's stuff when
yeah,
that
well,
what it is
God,
we are the big
God,
brother. We are the
you
big
you
brother.
already tried it that way.
With the
You
little,
already tried it that way
and
twice,
again,
and
America
we
was
ended up
not what it
twice
is now.
in world wars,
And
2
America
world
was not
wars,
what it is
and
now.
both times it took us years to gear up and get the material where we needed it to be so that we could fight the decisive engagements.
I would rather our country, if our country was first and our country was priority, our country gets to decide what it's going to do instead of NATO saying, "Hey, I picked a fight with this guy, big brother, come back me up." Why do we
Yeah,
care?
but that's how an alliance works. The alliance does not work unless you make that promise.
We make the
It,
promise
the point is to deter, and it has been effective in deterrence for 80 years. So
through the
I don't, yeah, and I think if you mess with it, you're going to get problems. Just like Russia invaded Ukraine because Ukraine was not part of NATO.
Mhm.
So what do you think has prevented Russia from invading, the Baltic states? It's probably because they're part of NATO. So Russia would love to have the Baltic states. They'd love to have the port of Riga. They'd love to have it.
So why not have an individual treaty with Ukraine where we said we're going to get these resources, we're going to be here. United States people, United States companies are going to be in there. United States will the have interest there, and we will have protection there. And if Russia comes in and tries to attack, they'll be attacking us, the United States.
Right. There's nothing that
Agreement.
prevents us from making an agreement such as that on an
All
individual
we need.
basis.
That's all we
But
need.
no, I don't think so. Again, you're missing the lesson of history, that you need the gang in order to deter. If you don't have the gang, you don't have the deterrence.
Times have changed since those moments in history. The
Yeah,
leverage of the
you if
military.
you want to roll the dice on that when you become president, you go for it.
Okay, so you're just not willing to roll the dice.
Absolutely not. No.
America's not the priority.
This is how we protect America. This is how we prevent World War III, the same way we've done it for 80 years.
And
We've tried it the way you propose. It didn't work twice. We got into world wars both times. It took us years to gear up and to fight the decisive battles that won those wars. I don't think we want to do that a third time, and especially given the stakes of a World War III.
wow. It seems like you still think the world is the way it was 60, 70, 80 years ago.
Well, then why do you want to go back to the way it was 100 years ago and 110 years ago? Why do
Because
you want to
the
go
United
back
States
then?
is different.
Because that doesn't.
The United States has
No,
changed.
the oceans are still there, Scott. You
Yeah,
still have to cross an ocean to
Mhm.
get to Europe and an ocean to get to Asia. They're still there, bro. They're still really, really big. You know,
It's just
it's
switching
logistics.
from a gang mentality to an individual mentality. A
Yeah,
gang
well,
mentality means that the gang can get you into trouble, and the individual mentality is we can control.
yeah. Well, we've tried the individual approach. We tried the isolated approach twice, and both times it didn't work
It's like you're a broken record. It's like, yeah,
because we've done it.
it's like when I was 12, I tried that, and I wasn't big enough to do it by myself.
Well,
Now I'm 30 and I'm still acting like I'm 12. I need all these
well,
friends. No, you don't. You've
Scott,
changed.
you can.
You've grown up. You've gotten bigger. You're different. Quit comparing yourself to when you were 12.
All right. So, how do you solve the problem of logistics?
I don't know. You're the president. You figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. I figured it out, so that's my answer. So,
All right. Okay. So we have this. So let me see. What else was there? I'm trying to think of what was brought up on that one. Do you have anything you want to say as president?
gulags for Scott, I tell you that. For
Right.
recommendation. Let's take a look at our comments here. So let's just take a quick peek when it all loads, like it should.
Right.
Let's see here. And I don't see any comments on my live feed on my end, but that's just on my end.
So you would post, you'd said, and that's kind of what we're talking about of, and it kind of going to go down the same road. And we're actually at 30 minutes right now. So maybe we'll have to consider this conversation another time, but that pretty much answered the post I was talking about where you were saying that, how does turning America into a pariah state make us great? And
Yeah, it doesn't.
I guess it's the question of, is standing up on your own make you a pariah?
It depends on how you do it. The answer in and of itself is no, but the way in which we're doing it is kind of rude, frankly. We live in a globalized world, globalized time, and these global networks were built mostly by the United States,
Mhm.
and they were built and designed to benefit us. And they do benefit us as they have for a long time. Now, that's a whole separate critique, a whole separate problem that I have with capitalism and how it works. But this is the world that we're in. And when we break down those global connections, we're actually only going to be hurting ourselves over the long term. We haven't yet seen the effects or the impact of these whiplash policies, tariffs on, tariffs off, tariffs on, and so on.
Mhm.
But these consequences will come home to roost. And you could also say that we're seeing this already in the stock market. Take a look at the stock market and just how down it is, which
Mhm.
is pretty shocking for many people, even
You
Wall
never
Street
cared about
people.
before.
What's that?
You never cared about before, but now you suddenly do.
No, no, I don't. I'm saying that it's an indicator of the consequences that are to come. Remember, we're still a capitalist society.
Mhm.
I don't like it, but that's what we are. And we have to look at capitalist bellwethers to determine what the future is going to hold. And right now, the economic bellwethers are all pointing in the red. And, well, it's going to trickle down to us.
Yeah. So again, we had this conversation a little bit slightly last week as we're closing up right now. I think that I think sometimes drastic measures need to happen. I think sometimes it's justified that, you know what, let's swing for the fence and let's try this, because the slow moving, unmoving way that we've been doing it isn't working. And
Right.
there needs to be a drastic change. And like I said, I'm the kind of person that I kind of side with that. If it's time to clean house, then I'm just going to start throwing stuff away. I'm just going to start throwing stuff away, because it's going to get clean. It's going to get drastic. It's going to move. People are going to react. People are going to, they're going to, yeah. So this is serious, because if I tell my family, hey, we're cleaning up, and I tell them for months, we're cleaning up, I tell them for years, hey, we're cleaning up, and finally, you know what? I'm just going to go through your room and start throwing stuff away. Suddenly they're like, no, hold on, no, I do need to keep this and this and this and this. Okay, cool. You weren't cleaning it up, and you weren't saying what was your priority before. My action made you suddenly say, whoa, hold on. And I'm the kind of person like, you know what? Maybe we need that reaction. And I'm for a presidency that's going to shake things up and cause that reaction and make us see what the priorities are, instead of just going with, well, we're going to stick with what's worked before, which hasn't actually worked.
Yeah. Well, keep in mind that a government and a nation is not a household. And we're not a family where dad just comes in and does all these things.
Mhm.
And that's not even the role of a president. President is not America's daddy.
That's
President is actually the first servant of the American people, who receives his instructions from Congress, who are themselves elected by their constituents, which is the American people.
Constituents
And
aren't
there
people.
doesn't seem to be a clear understanding that the president has a service role rather than just a dictator's role.
What you're forgetting is that the people, the house that's being cleaned is not the house of the people. I'm going through if I'm the dad going through the bedroom and going to my kids' rooms and we're going to start throwing stuff out, that's not the American people. That's the rest of the government. He's only going through the government houses, going through the government rooms for the people.
Right, but the president does not have unlimited power. The
Serving
president,
the people by going through. You said he's not acting in service. No, absolutely, the actual opposite. He is serving the American people by going through the house with this
how does cutting a bunch of nurses from the VA serve veterans? How does it serve them?
when it's rebuilt and rebuilt better? You're seeing how
okay, so a person who needs critical life-sustaining care can wait.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to tell all our veterans, go ahead and wait for your health care. Go ahead and wait for your health care while we do the 5-10 year process to rebuild.
It's not going to be a 5-10 year process. That's the difference.
Oh, you don't think so?
No.
Oh, my sweet summer child. Oh boy.
All right. So we marked it here.
We'll
talk about this in 3 to 4 years and see where we're at.
Oh boy.
I'm a fan of drastic change. Mr. President.
Yeah.
And you would not be the president for me, because you're still relying on the old system that just doesn't work. I'm sorry, Mr. President, but you don't have my vote.
That's okay.
But apparently you have somebody's vote, because you became president. I don't know how that happened. Maybe next week I'll be president.
Maybe so.
All right. Until next time, this has been United Opposition with Scott and President Marshall. Next week he will not be President Marshall. It'll be back to regular Marshall, and we'll be back to the regular the dimension that we're in, the dystopian dimension that we're in. I know everybody likes to say dystopia. Everywhere you live is a dystopia, because utopias do not exist. So there we are. This has been United Opposition with Scott Marshall. We'll catch you guys next week. God bless.